Hi YouTube, welcome back to the channel. BA Life-Adelic, aka Glenn. Today we're going to start working on the inside of the storm shelter. So we're going to start off, do a little V-pan, and then maybe look around a little bit, see what we got on the scrap pile. Hey! All right, we'll do the V-pan for this project. So what we got, we'll have the shelter. We'll do the inside wall. This back wall. Our little vent. The door will be up here, floor. So what I'm thinking of doing here is build some benches. Let's set up here. One will be over here. This is a transparent wall. So these benches I want to make big enough to be able to sit on and lay down on there if we have to. We have to stay for an extended period of time. So I want to make these out of 2 by 12 boards. And these are going to be 6 feet long. So I know that I don't have 2 by 12 boards, so we'll have to purchase those. Now, I want to put a portable air conditioner in here. And what I'm going to do is here, I use a 2 by 6, attach it to the bench, and it'll span in between these 2 benches, be up a little bit higher, and then that portable air conditioner is going to sit there. It's bigger than this. I made this a little too big. I'll raise it. So it's going to be here. I have a little platform big enough for it to sit on. Extend up here. It's one of the type that's on wheels. It's not a window unit. And then it's got that exhaust tube, and I've come up here. And I think I've figured this out to be able to Velcro a plastic material on there that fits around the tube, and then we'll adapt to fit in there to exhaust that heat. A little cold air out here. Because when it's hot, I did some temperature things overnight. Overnight it stays down, it gets down to about 72. During the day, it's up there, it's about 92, 94. Now, I had thought about putting insulation in these walls, but when I thought about it, the amount of time that will be in there is not going to make any difference. And it's be difficult to put any insulation that's worthwhile in there because we only have about 1.5 inches of space. There's these studs, sort of they're metal structural beams, I guess, and they're only 1.5 inches. So there's not really enough room to put anything there without taking up a lot of the interior space. Now, we can put some flooring on here, some of that gym mat type flooring that interlocks together like a puzzle. And then we've got the door swing here. Make it a little small. But the door swings this way. And then I've got space behind here where I can put some pet carriers. Those are going to be in there. So we're going to have to source from our stockpile, from our scrap pile, some 2 by 4s, 2 by 6s, and then I've got 2 by 10s left over that I can use for this platform. So I want to make everything out of 2 by stock, so we'll just have to purchase that 2 by 12. Now I'm thinking I'm gonna have to look around. I know I don't have anything here in the scrap pile for cushions here, and I'm thinking like garden furniture cushions that can fold up. It can either be this way, or completely flat here, so you can lay down. And then up here on this platform somewhere, I'm gonna try. I think I might get some drawer slides. Have a platform that comes out where I can have radio and TV, and then those antenna wires. And I put antenna outdoor antenna come through this vent. So there's a basic plan. Let's see what happens. So take a look here. We got these 3 vents covered up. We got those, and we got one on the door. And that creates a cross flow of air through here. Now if we look up inside there,
can see, it's got a bird net. It's to keep the birds out. But that doesn't keep the critters out. So I'm going to try and put some window screen material up there. Use some double-sided tape. Stick it in there. Help keep the bugs out of here. Also, if you haven't been keeping up with current events, this shelter is a metal building. So RF signals are not going to be able to pass through easily. So to be able to get radio, TV signal in here, I'm going to need to put antennas on the outside. So I'm going to have to pass those through these vents here, the wires. So I'm going to have to cut a little piece of that corner to be able to pass those through. So there's the tape. Hope this holds. 100 pounds per roll. Tile, metal, wood, stone, glass, and plastics. And window screen, we hope. Didn't do anything. I don't even know if it scratched the paint. So, we'll see if we can snip them off. Well, plan B's not working either. Let's see if we can just grind it out of there. Yep, see that? That's BA Life-Adelic. I think we just kicked its ass. Now, measure, cut this material. All right, that's installed. So hopefully it keeps the critters out of here. Bugs at least. We're gonna have to really seal this place up because if Mrs. B.A. Life-Adelic ever came in here and there was a snake or some kind of reptile, she would probably blow this place up. Here we go. So it's got these nice little finish pieces so you can take off as needed. Just need to connect it. There it is, floor installed. See how it works out, whether or not we need to use some carpet tape or something like that.
Looking pretty good. All right, next step. So we're gonna start cutting some lumber today, and I think we're in luck because in our scrap pile I've got 2x10s that we can use for the benches, so we won't have to purchase those 2x12s. So let's check it out. I think we can get some out of these. We may have to purchase one, but we'll see. We'll just have to use 2 2x10s and then put a 2x4 in the middle to make up that distance. So let's get to work. I need to make these benches. The seat height, I measured my dining room chairs, 17.5 inches. So I'm gonna have to cut 4 2x4s. So I need to subtract 1.5 inches. So I need to cut 2x4s 16 inches. See if it works out. So that's the way the end will look, the legs. Got it notched out. This piece I'll screw before I attach it to these boards, and this leg will get through here and through there. Screwed in. I think I might make a triangle brace here. I'll find some material. I think I have some triangles in there from building some stairs. So we'll check it out. What do you know? Got them in the scrap pile. I'll just have to cut them off here. No big deal. I'll round it. So, there we go. We'll get the rest of these cut up and then work on another bench. So this lumber that I'm using for these benches, I used to make the concrete pad, using for the forms on that concrete pad for the storm shelter. So we're just recycling them here, so I'm gonna have to clean it up, get some of that cement off of there. So, you can see it here, pretty bad. So we got this little nylon brush and put it on the drill. See if that'll scrub that off. Not bad. I'm actually not too worried about getting every bit of that off there because I'm going to paint it. So, just so long as I get it so it's not too bad as the paint will stick on there. Yeah! So, we won't put you through all that. I'll do the rest of this off camera. So, this is what we're going to use to put this together. That should work. Fingers crossed. So, I got one of these little jigs to drill in that diagonal to catch these boards back. Got from the T-Moves. So I'm going to give it a try. But I think I'll only put them on the ends here. So I'm going to use those other pieces to hold it together. There we go. We'll give it a try. We're gonna start putting this together. the legs are going to look like. That's pretty sturdy. So I think that'll hold me up. So I'll finish these up, show you the end. So, gotta notch these out. We'll get those marked, cut them out. I notched that one already. This one over here. This one, missed it on the door. So let's come back, do that one some more. And we'll show you how this gets done. There you go. Fences fit. So, the next step, we'll get those painted, and then we've got to make the air conditioner stand. I'll show you that here. So, yeah, on to the next step. All right, now comes the worst part, painting. You gotta get these painted. Yeah.
Why didn't you guys tell me? That's not going to work. This task has successfully failed. So we'll start over. So I think what we'll do, we'll put the AC right on the floor, build a rack, goes over top, so we'll be able to set stuff. Nice and easy. So earlier I talked about this being a steel building and RF wouldn't be able to pass through. So we got to put an antenna for the TV, radio, etc. So I originally thought about attaching something here, letting the wires come out here, hook over to here. But now I think I'm going to try to attach it right here. It's going to be difficult because I've got to drill through this material. I don't really have a sharp drill bit, but we'll see what we can do. I've determined to attach it to that. So I've got an old satellite dish that we took off the house, and I'm going to repurpose that. Yeah! That's the dish. I don't know if you remember, there was an earlier video. We took it off the side of the house. But I want to use this portion, attach this to the building, and then put a piece here, a piece of wood, attach my antennas. I might even try and put it a little bit higher for that TV antenna, get better reception. So let's take this apart. That's how I'd like to try and get that mounted on there. So we'll see. Well, that right there, I was expecting to be one of the most difficult. It turned out to be one of the most easy. Next, we got to get the wires run up there. I've got this seat spinner. Let's see if there's some way I can use that to make my antenna mast adjustable. So I want to see if I can use this little one, my AM antenna,
because you do have to twist that around to get good reception. So we'll check that out next. So I think I'm going to weatherproof this wood with just some oil. Just let that oil soak in, and if it starts to rot, just put some more on. Groovy. I was able to get that put on there, so I'll be able to adjust that antenna. The instructions suggest that, you know, for best reception, you can adjust it vertical or horizontal. I'll have to figure out a way to block it for the horizontal so it'll sit still. Pretty groovy. So, I want to talk about the 2x maths. So, everybody knows that a 2x4 isn't actually 2 inches by 4 inches, it's 1.5 by 3.5. So, I was going to make these benches with 2x12 pieces. Now, if you subtract the ½ inch that you would assume is not there, you would assume that those 2x12s would actually be 1.5 by 11.5. So if you put those together, that would make 23 inches. Now, I went and looked in my scrap pile, and I had some leftover 2x10s. So I said, well, I'll just use these, and then I had to purchase one 12-foot 2x10 to be able to finish the benches, instead of having to get two 12-foot 2x12s. So, and then I thought I could just make up the space with a 2x4 in the middle. So, if I take the dimensions, the published dimensions, 2x12, if I had two of those, two 2x12s would make 24 inches. So I assumed that two 2x10s and one 2x4, which makes 24 inches, would be the same as two 2x12s, which are actually 11.5 inches. Which makes 23 inches. So in the assumption that when I completed the benches, they would be 23 inches. So I built the benches with two 2x10s and one 2x4 in the middle. I measured them, and they're 22 inches. Now we'll get to that later. But now when I do the math, for a 2x12, which is actually 1.5 by 11.5, if I add those widths together, it would be 23 inches. Now when I take two 2x10s and one 2x4 and I add those real dimensions together, which should be 9.5 plus 9.5, which would be 19 inches, plus 3.5, which would be plus 3.5, which would be 22.5 inches. So if two 2x12s would be 23 inches, why isn't two 2x10s
and one 2x4, also 23 inches. Comment down below if you can figure that one out. But we'll have to get a tape measure and show you the real deal with this lumber. So here we go. Like I said, the bench ended up 22 inches. So here's the real kicker. So part of the mystery, when you look at this 2x10, which I assumed was 9.5 inches, is only 9.25 inches. So that's the 2x maths. Let's see if we can seal this up a little better. All right, looks like it's done. Check it out. The kitchen's on. Got 27 channels and nothing's on. Radio's working. AC works. Got all this. So the pet carrier's go sitting in there. So there we go. We're gonna call this one done. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
Hello, darling. Could you pass the Grey Poupon? But I don't like Grey Poupon. Darling, give me the remote. I don't want to miss Gilligan's Island. But I don't like Gilligan's Island.